guys, and welcome back to ManchTalk. As you can see, I'm here with my co-host for today, Matthew Ping. How you doing, Matt?
Doing well. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no, we are here, and we are here to talk about all things real estate in New Hampshire. Before we get to that deep dive, I wanted to remind people, last week I did have on a whistleblower from the Youth Detention Center scandal. She had some very choice and interesting insights as someone who spent 4 years in the system, including at the property itself.
Wow.
And some of you may have noticed there's signs sort of popping up all over the city that says "Get the Truth" on YDC, ydctruth.org. Those are the bad guys. Or at least those are the statists and the people who were the perpetrators who have put up a website to start to sort of muddy the waters a little bit. So, cautionary tale, but it is up on my YouTube channel, so people can go take a look there. I was pretty shocked at some of the details that came out, right? Because those are the things you hear where you can hear you're hearing truth because it's so like, it was, I don't know, it was pretty shocking to me. So anyway, that's that. Now on to much better and brighter news. So first of all, Matt and I will be speaking this weekend, Sunday,
on Sunday.
Wentworth by the Sea, which is in Newcastle, technically, not Portsmouth, which I've been saying. But I'm really looking forward to it. I spoke to the organizers, Bruce and Carol Ann Fenton, and she said, she's getting a lot of registrations. I think for folks who are watching this live right now, or if you're seeing this today on YouTube, it is Wednesday, October 8th.
The 8th, yeah.
I think. And you can still go to blockchainnh.com to register, but they're probably going to close that pretty soon because we should give final head counts.
Right, but there's no cost to register either. So you can sign up, get a free ticket, come learn about Bitcoin and the New Hampshire crypto scene.
Right. So we thought we would do maybe like a little cheat episode where we kind of practice a little bit of what we're doing this weekend. So for folks who are back home who might not be able to make it for the conference itself, we want to give you guys a little bit of a flavor. So I thought we could just start with, just the shortest of bios. Like, what's your story? How did you get here?
Well, I am the broker of Porcupine Real Estate and Ledgeview Commercial. Ledgeview Commercial handles property management. Porcupine Real Estate is single-family sales, working throughout New Hampshire. I've had my real estate license since 2007.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not the best time to get into real estate. So I did end up going back to school, got a degree in business management and property management.
Okay.
And that's what led me down the path to working at apartment complexes and then ultimately starting my own company in 2014 for property management.
Wow, you must have been sorry not to date you, but you must have been like a baby.
Yeah, right out of college,
Yeah.
Brand new.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
property
that's
management,
awesome.
working in an office environment. That's where I started to drink coffee and it went downhill.
Well, I became a lawyer and that's where I started to drink, period. Which I no longer do, as everyone knows.
I was
Wow.
going to say, right now, Ledgeview Commercial, we manage 350 apartments, mostly in Manchester and Concord, and then another 60 condo communities, condo units within Manchester, Concord area. So it's a lot of real estate that we manage here in the city.
Wow, that's huge. I actually had no idea there were that many units. So that would explain a lot of why you guys are so busy.
Yes.
And of course, maybe for the viewers at home, your wife actually does a show here as well, I believe, at the studio.
She does, yes. Brittany Ping does a show here. The name of it is escaping me at the moment, though.
Oh, now you're in trouble.
Now I'm in
Something
trouble.
with right in it. The right something. Anyway, so, okay, so wonderful. And for folks who don't know who I am, I'm Carla Garrick. I'm the president emeritus of the Free State Project. I serve on the chair of the board there still. My background is pretty much, I was a lawyer in Silicon Valley, so I'm kind of like a tech nerd lawyer type. I worked for Apple Computer and for Borland and for Logitech. I was actually a millionaire on paper before I was 30, but learned some lessons with the dot-com boom and bust back then.
Paper gains will only get you so far.
Yes, which is part of what we want to talk about today, which is kind of why I brought it up, right? Is how can we help people, especially people in the crypto space, diversify their assets so that, yes, everyone wants to HODL. Everyone thinks, yes, we're all going to, that one Bitcoin everyone's still clinging to is going to be worth $1 million or $1 billion I saw the other day. But realistically, you want a basket of goods that is a little mixed up. And what we want to persuade you guys is that part of that basket of goods should be a sweet, sweet little spot here in New Hampshire.
Yes, diversification is important in anyone's investment portfolio.
Yeah, and and as someone who actually, I brought up I was a millionaire on paper because I also, got my first Bitcoin for $6, but I actually spent it to pay rent one time. And at the time I was like, well, I got it for $6 and it's worth like $3,000 or whatever it was at the time. And I was like, so it's not as bad as the $3 million pizza.
Right, the 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas, yes.
Was that how much it was?
Yeah, that's what it was back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you don't know the story, this is part of Bitcoin lore at this stage. And it was to prove proof of concept, to say that it could be peer-to-peer payment. And someone was like, hey, I'm going to buy these pizzas for X amount of Bitcoin. We just heard 10,000.
Yeah, it was the delivery driver accepted the Bitcoin and he paid cash to his employer for the pizza, right? So then the delivery guy kept the Bitcoin, right? And that was the transaction, and that satisfied all parties involved.
Very nice. So actually, that's probably a really great segue to talk about Bitcoin transactions in real estate in New Hampshire. Now, I'd say you're probably the leading expert in New Hampshire at this stage on that entire world. You and I worked on a transaction last year. Yep. I know Mark Warden, who's also a co-broker or associate broker with you. Mark Warden, 4-term state rep here in New Hampshire. He is currently serving. I believe he's going to run again, may not run again. That's not important. What's important is he was the first politician that, I believe either the first or the second, but I think he was the first politician to ever take Bitcoin as candidate campaign donations. Yeah. And then he also sold his house, correct?
Yeah, he was party to the transaction where he sold his house for Bitcoin.
So tell people what that kind of looks like, right? So let's take an example. Last year we had a crypto enthusiast coming from Colorado. He wanted a certain kind of property. It was on the higher end. Let's say it was like over 800,000. And he specifically wanted to use crypto. So what does that look like?
From the real estate side, it's not too different from a normal transaction, right? We work with our clients, we find out what they're interested in, what do they want to see in a home, and then we actually go visit properties, and if they like it, we put in an offer. For the seller, if the seller doesn't want to accept cryptocurrency directly, which most of them don't because they have a mortgage they have to pay off, that's where Porcupine Real Estate can help. Okay. We have relationships with different exchanges that can take the cryptocurrency, convert it to US dollar, and then we send that to the title company, which then ultimately gets to the seller.
Okay, so the cleanest way to do it is if you have a willing buyer and seller and someone goes, I have an $800,000 house, and this person goes, I have 4 Bitcoin or whatever the math is, right? And then you can legally in New Hampshire literally go, seller goes, hey, yeah, I'll open a wallet and I will take Bitcoin, and the the buyer can be like, I'm going to send you Bitcoin. And it's as simple as that. Why am I emphasizing that? Because that is the ideal transaction. So if you're like sitting at home and you're kind of waiting for it to hit the $1 billion, why not wait while sitting on a deck looking at a lake somewhere here, especially this time of year when it's so pretty.
It's beautiful out. Yeah, and the weather has really been cooperating recently.
Right. I mean, I don't know, years and years ago, and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of climate change, but I will tell you, I do like these long summers we're having here in New Hampshire, and leaf peeping season, fair enough. There were cars from Boston to Canada up on the highway last weekend.
Goodness.
The traffic looked pretty gnarly from my home. I wasn't on the road, but you know, for those of us who live here, we get to really appreciate both the beauty of the state, of course, the low taxes, quality of living, all of that cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, ideally, right, with that buyer and seller working directly together, it means there's not a mortgage on the property. It means that the seller doesn't have a mortgage, they don't need dollars, that they have to pay it off, right? So if the buyer has Bitcoin, the seller wants Bitcoin, they work directly together, right? Where we're at now in the real estate market and with the dollar in general, with home prices being so high, most people need to have a mortgage, unfortunately. There's a way to get around that. There's new companies working with Bitcoin and real estate to try to combine the two, right? So if you're saving in Bitcoin and you wait 3 to 5 years, for example, chances are that home price, it'll cost you a lot less.
Okay.
Right? So the median home in New Hampshire right now is $535,000. That's $200,000 more than it was 5 years ago.
Wow.
Right? But if you were to say, have bought Bitcoin 5 years ago, and you want to buy a house today, it would cost you 90% less.
Wow.
So a significant savings if you had put it into Bitcoin.
Okay.
Now, for example, if we had done the same thing with gold, so you bought gold 5 years ago, it would have been 39% less than today.
Wow.
So gold has increased in value significantly.
But not as much as Bitcoin.
But not as much as Bitcoin has, yes.
Wow. So that is interesting, right? Because for people who understand sound money, you know, we talk about the fiat currency, which is what Bitcoin is trying to fix. It's also why sound money like gold and silver have gone up, right? Because we have printed, and by we, I mean not us, I mean the Federal Reserve,
the US
which
government.
is, you know, not actually a federal agency. It's a private bank, but that's a different conversation, has been printing an insane amount of money. And for people who aren't experts on this, here's the basic way to understand it like a 5-year-old can. If you make more and more and more and more of something, eventually you start to dilute
its value. Right.
And so the dollar has been printed so much that it is being diluted to a 90% against Bitcoin hedge.
Right.
So if you are holding Bitcoin now is probably a really good time to get into the market, I think, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my opinion, New Hampshire is never going to get cheaper.
I agree.
It's just, I'm sorry, guys. I know no one wants to hear that, but it is simple supply and demand.
Right.
And we know we have a housing shortage here in New Hampshire. Right. And we have an attractive state that people want to move to.
They love New Hampshire, and more people are coming every year.
And so even though we have seen housing inventory go up quite a bit, I think it's up like 6%, I want to say, from last, from last year, I think. Sorry, I'm looking for my card here. Yeah, up 6% year over year in terms of price, but also inventory is up 6%. But the market is still raging because what we have seen here is 65 months, so that's a lot of years. That's probably of straight growth.
Right.
And so that it's not like Florida, right? That saw this massive influx, and now they're sort of seeing an
Florida
outflux.
and Texas and these large markets where they've been able to build a lot,
Right.
They've overbuilt, right? So now what we're seeing is that real estate pricing and rents are actually going down because of that.
Wow.
New Hampshire does not have that. We've not built nearly enough to satisfy the current demand, let alone future demand.
Right, because I think if I remember correctly, they were saying we have, was a 90,000 unit shortage in the state was the projection I read
think out
somewhere.
10 years.
Yeah.
New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority does a study, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's what you're talking about, where it's like we're 30,000 short for the next 5 years and maybe 90 for the next 10. Don't quote us on the numbers on that one. We'd have to look it up.
Well, and also it was funny, we were talking right before the show, it's so difficult with numbers now because we live in this Insta era, right? Where you're like, oh, we both separately looked up the median house price and we came to slightly different numbers. Right. And then I was like, as long as we're in the ballpark, and you said it was 535.
535, yeah, for the month of September.
And I, my AI Grok said it was 560. So close enough, right? But also $30,000 if you're paying on a mortgage.
That makes a difference when you're buying a house.
It does matter, yeah. So I'm really excited for this weekend because we get to talk about crypto, Bitcoin, real estate, and sort of what we think the landscape is going to look like. So New Hampshire is kind of a trailblazer, I suppose is the term.
A lot of firsts in New Hampshire.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Right, first in the nation primary, right? So that's the big one. We know about that one, right? But we're also ahead of the game as far as regulation goes around Bitcoin and crypto. So New Hampshire has legalized or written into laws and policies that are favorable for Bitcoin and trust accounting. We kind of have a first and second place kind of thing going on with Wyoming.
Yeah.
Right? They've been able to pass a lot before us, but then we kind of improve on what they've done, or they vice versa, right? And they look at us and.
And actually, just to interject, I met at PorcFest this year the lawyer who works with Caitlin Long, who is she's one of 13 female CEO bankers in America. So it's a very still sort of male-dominated industry, but she's amazing. But she was looking at should she come to New Hampshire or should she go to Wyoming? Right. There were reasons she ended up in Wyoming that really worked for her, right? But this lawyer who was brilliant and just a really interesting guy, and his wife was great and everything, he was like, we should have this more information flowing between the two states. Yep. But of course, we do look at what other places are doing and sort of see what one can leverage from there and introduce here. I was reading up on top of this sort of being first for the Bitcoin reserve, right?
Yep. New Hampshire was the first to pass the state law that we can hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet for the state. Not a requirement, but the state treasurer has that option now.
So I was not wondering, because to my understanding, and we can certainly ask Keith Emmon, also for a fifth-term state rep from New Boston, about it this weekend, is whether, yes, we can do it. Now the question becomes, are we doing it?
To my knowledge, the state has not done it yet. They're still researching, right, which is good. Everybody should do your own research, but it should happen as soon as you're comfortable with it, because everybody should get off zero and acquire some Bitcoin, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so we might actually take it as a call to action or an action item, maybe not for this year, but look, let's get all the information first, but actually be like, start to mildly agitate that we want to see that 5% held in Bitcoin, gold, silver, or platinum.
Right.
Why? Because we started this whole conversation with, if you understand anything, the reason your eggs are so expensive is because our money is being diluted, and that causes inflation, and that means we are actually truly all becoming poorer. And we believe, and actually so far the markets are holding strong on this, that crypto is a partial, at a minimum, solution to some of these issues.
Correct. Right. I want to mention Keith Ammon. He's also the chair of the New Hampshire Blockchain Council, which is a advocacy and education group for state legislators, anybody in state offices, or businesses that are interested in accepting Bitcoin or figuring out how to work with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency within your business.
So I thought it was interesting. I know there was a Keene Sentinel Business Review article coming out on Bitcoin usage in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
They were doing it primarily focused on the Monadnock region out of the Keene area.
All right.
But you know, I talked to the reporter on background. I mentioned Keith and said she should definitely reach out to him to get a better sense. I was looking this morning as I was just kind of doing some research. There was a bill, I'm going to forget the number right now, that I think it's HB 639. It might have gotten tabled, but it sounds like they might bring it back from the Senate. But this one was really interesting because it protects in-home mining. It stops municipalities from discriminating against you for the energy use.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, this is so interesting that the criticism that is now coming out against crypto is actually energy-based.
It's the power usage that Bitcoin or cryptocurrency requires is how it's being attacked.
And so, is it true? Can we say New Hampshire might have a solution to this problem?
I mean, they are looking into improving the nuclear energy in the state, right? I know there's bills being introduced on that level as well. But like, there's been studies about Bitcoin mining that it's now more than 50% green energy. Now, we can improve on that, right? I think it should be higher, and New Hampshire can lead the way, but we need the legislature to make some changes.
Right, and so, you know, I think if we're sort of starting our lists of sort of issues to follow for this legislative season coming up, of course, the bills are now in.
Right.
The LSRs will start to get numbers.
We're going to see more and more of the details coming out on them. Yep.
And so this one might be one, if they're bringing it back to watch, or at a minimum, I will get more information for everyone so we can report back on that. In terms of sort of the general real estate market here in New Hampshire, what can you tell us?
General real estate market has been steady over the past year. I mean, aside from the median prices going up, inventory is about the same. We don't have a whole lot. I mean, a healthy market, we should have about 6 months of inventory, and we're still around 3 months of inventory, if I recall.
Yep.
So there's still a strong demand for buyers in New Hampshire. And going back to the building, New Hampshire's not building enough single-family homes either to satisfy demand.
We are seeing some building in condos, and
we are seeing a lot of condos.
The condo market is kind of really heating up.
One reason the condo market is heating up is because of the price point. It's less expensive generally than a single-family home, and the maintenance is lower, right, where you don't have to directly take care of the maintenance. So if the roof goes bad on your condo, that's what your homeowner's dues are for, right? That's why you pay the dues. It's for the common area expenses. It pays the water bill, right?
And some of that is just personal preference, like because so many of our sort of people who relocate through, let's say, the Free State Project, or who are moving to New Hampshire for the New Hampshire Advantage, low taxes, live free or die ethos, right? They sometimes are not that keen on sort of the condo model because, yes, there are HOA fees, or no, you're not allowed to paint your door teal, or like whatever it is, right? But there are also advantages to that kind of stuff. One, you sort of socialize in the true sense of the word, the cost, right, for plowing, for roof repairs, whatever it is. But also, maybe you're, you know, we also attract retirees. Yes, we have young people coming in, but maybe you're like, I've done enough plowing in my life. I'm ready to pay someone the $400 a month.
Makes it a little bit easier, right? So you can concentrate on living, doing something else rather than housework.
Right. And, if you are inclined to want to change your environment, you can always join your HOA.
You can run for an office, part of your
and create
HOA.
your own little government right there. Unbelievably, we are up against the clock again. Anything you want folks to know?
Take a look at Bitcoin. Do your research. See what's out there. Gold as well. Buy some gold if you haven't yet. I think you should still get in, but do your own research.
Yeah, that's good advice for folks back home. I was going to read from this book. This is Untamed by Glennon Doyle, who is a female writer, although I thought the name Glennon Doyle, I thought it was a dude, and I started reading it, and then I found this beautiful passage that has absolutely nothing to do with crypto. So I'm not going to read it because it's just not going to make sense. But tell folks back home where they can reach you.
You can find me at ledgeviewcommercial.com or on X at Porcupine Realty.
Okay, great. And folks can find me at carlagarrick.com is where I save all my content on my website, Carla Garrick TV on YouTube. We save these episodes. We're starting to actually add them to Spotify and to Apple as podcasts. And you can reach me for my real estate stuff at carla@porcupinerealestate.com. If you are coming to the conference this weekend, we would love to meet you in person. Porcupine Real Estate and Ledgeview Commercial are sponsoring. We will have a table. We will be speaking. We're saving all the good tidbits for the event itself. But we really do look forward to helping more people, one, understand crypto, specifically Bitcoin, specifically the value proposition, i.e., it's trying to solve problems that we are all experiencing, which is a decline of the US dollar. And we want you all to move to the Free State, come support the efforts here, and make New Hampshire the most exceptional, peaceful, and prosperous place on earth. Thanks, guys.
Well said.